Those are three items I just wanted to mention that are significant. And then finally, I did want to comment on the Little Rock School District. Let me set this up just in terms of background. The Arkansas Constitution, Article 14, Section 1, delineates the state of Arkansas as the responsible party for assuring an equitable education for the students in this state. This is something that's been litigated in the Lakeview versus Huckabee case, 2002 decision. The court said it is the absolute duty of the state of Arkansas to provide all public school children with a substantially equal opportunity for an adequate education. The Supreme Court of Arkansas did not mix any words, did not hesitate in saying it is the state responsibility to assure an equitable education for the students in the state of Arkansas. If the state ignored the academic performance measures and returned all schools without sufficient support, then we would surely have dedicated civil rights lawyers that would be immediately filing a lawsuit saying we're not meeting our obligations under the Lakeview decision. It is the state's responsibility as interpreted by our Constitution and by the Supreme Court. There are those who want the state to abandon its constitutional and moral responsibility to the students. The State Board of Education made it clear that we will not do that. It is a state responsibility. It has been given to us, and we want to be able to stand and continue to provide the support for the students in the school districts across Arkansas that is expected and demanded by our Constitution. The State Board of Education did make a decision to return to local control, and I support that. I've said as many times as I've been asked that we want to return local control to the Little Rock School District patrons so that it can be run just like any other school district in the state of Arkansas. And so the stage is set for that election in November of 2020, and I don't have the exact numbers, but it looks like the vast majority in terms of the student population will be returned to local control under the framework that the State Board of Education adopted this last week. It is important that we continue to provide intensive state support for the Little Rock School District, and to me that is foundational. It is constitutionally required, but it's also the right thing to do for the students. And so the state will continue to stand with the students to make sure that they have what they need for continuing to improve education in the Little Rock School District. With that, I'd be happy to turn it over for any questions.
Governor, what do you say to the criticism that this framework, the way it's set up, is basically going to further segregate the district? It's not really local. It's not really local control when you look at the framework. It talks about, it doesn't really define what the limits are, but it has limits on that control. And also, what's your thoughts on the not recognizing the teachers union? What impact that's going to have, the possibility of that causing a walkout?
All right, so you got three different questions there, so let me work on those. The first one, I absolutely reject the proposition that this is a resegregation of the Little Rock School District. That is wrong. It is not based in fact, and it is really trying to resurrect old history that has no application to today. Whenever you look at the fact that the State Board of Education adopted a framework for a policy, and it was not based upon geography, it was based upon what is necessary under our constitutional responsibilities for the students. And so they adopted a policy, and we will then wait to see what the report cards and the student progress is. We don't know what schools will be in which category. We'll have to wait until we get that data that comes in. And so the framework is based upon 3 different categories that we will see how geography fits in with that. But let me also put it in the context that 2 of the current schools that are not meeting academic standards is, I believe, J.A. Fair and McClellan High Schools. Well, they're still fleshing out the framework, but that looks to me like that fits in within category 2, that they're going to be reconfigured into the new Southwest High School. I hope that the new Southwest High School will be in the category that will be subject to the local control. And that is incredible. Southwest High School will be south of I-630. I think it gives the maximum amount of influence for those high schools with the local elected school board, combined with continued support from the state, which is important. And that continued support from the state is absolutely essential under the constitutional responsibility. And then you asked me about the Little Rock Education Association. I have not received a final recommendation from the State Board of Education. As you can see, it is something that they wanted to have more public discussion on, and they'll come back and make a decision on it. That is something that the commissioner, as a State Board of Education, can make a decision on. My understanding is he wanted some guidance from the State Board of Education on that point, so we can see how it develops. I do believe that the statutorily mandated personnel policy committees that will be elected representatives, that provides for elected representatives from the teachers and the staff, will be a sufficient influence on personnel policies for the future. That's what the Fort Smith School District and others across the state have determined and leaned upon for representation from teachers and staff.
So when you say that's sufficient, are you saying you're leaning towards supporting the motion by your former staff member to decertify the Teachers Association, since you find a sufficient system in place already on personnel matters?
That's not my job to make that determination. I was asked my view on it. My view is that that's a decision that will be made by the Commissioner of Education, Secretary of Education, in combination with whatever direction that the State Board of Education provides.
You don't think it's the governor's job to exert influence on that decision of that emotion and import in the state's biggest county?
I don't think it is necessary or required. It may be appropriate, but I don't believe it's necessary or required. There's reasons that we have a Secretary of Education. I don't know every nuance of the Little Rock School District, but I did state my opinion that there's I think what the teachers and staff desire is some influence over personnel policies, and I believe the Personnel Policy Committee does provide that. Obviously, a union can also provide that influence as well, but it's a negotiated contract, so it's different. And I think you have to look at what is best for the future of the Little Rock School District and the students, and to improve education here. So I made my comment on it, but that's a decision that will ultimately be made by the Secretary of Education with any recommendations that might come from the State Board of Education.
Governor, how much do you think the Secretary of Education has told you? Can he or work with a union in those Category 3 schools? How much discussion have you had that? Is there a place for a union in those schools that are getting the state intensive treatment or care?
I made my comment on it. I'm not going to make any further comment on that situation. Let's see how that develops over the next
One more thing. I believe you said it's not required, it's not necessary for the governor to take a position. It might be appropriate. Is that? There's a chance you might find it appropriate for you to take a position between renown the board meeting. Is that what that means?
Well, it means what I said. I think it's appropriate for the governor to take a position on constitutional amendments that are offered to the ballot. The media asked me my position on every one of those. It's not required, but it is appropriate for me to make that statement. The same thing here. It is appropriate. Will I make that? We'll wait and see.
What's your Julius Laird, the Little Rock son? My concern is the progress or lack of progress being made since the Little Rock School District was taken over by the state. I understand there were 6 failing schools in 2015, and apparently now there are 22 failing schools, if those facts are correct. Do you have any comment regarding the progress where we're going from 6 failing schools to 22 failing schools maybe?
Yeah, I don't think those facts are correct. First of all, I believe we did start with 6 schools, and then the criteria, the measuring sticks were changed during the course of that. We moved to a different policy on that, and so you've got somewhat apples and oranges there. And you also see, one of the schools that originally had a F category actually was removed from that. And so the important thing is that we have made progress in the Little Rock School District, both in terms of facilities and finances, and you can see whether it's the reading or dyslexia programs that have been improved, but there's so much more to do. And I think the debate has to be, how do you improve? And I think the debate should be more broadly defined as, how can we have the maximum amount of local control with continued state support for the Little Rock School District? And I think the framework that the State Board of Education really redefines the debate to say this is a way we can continue state support, have a popular elected school board that can have influence and control over a significant amount, but we're not going to abandon it from a state perspective. And with that, we hope that we can continue to improve.
There are dozens of schools across the state that have F rating. By your Lakeview legal reasoning, wouldn't that mean that the state would need to take those schools over if it can't return the schools that are scoring F in LRSD?
Well, it means the state has a responsibility and has to determine what's the right approach. And you can list a number of different school districts across the state that has been taken over or reconstituted by the State Board of Education for the reason, just like the Little Rock School District. And so this is not unusual, but the challenges are significant, and we haven't seen the progress everybody would like to see in as quick an amount of time as we'd like to see. But there's not anything different in terms of the state's responsibility to our school district as it is every other school district in the state of Arkansas.
Governor Scott Green, Central Arkansas Press, you mentioned progress several times. Now that we're moving toward a brand new school in Southwest Little Rock that is merging 2 failing schools that were both failing in terms of being F-rated schools, majority minority, of low income demographics. What have you been told that will be done differently to keep this from being another failing school?
Well, that's a perfect question, and I think it illustrates the challenge that we're in. And so, first of all, the decisions haven't been made. We've set up the framework. There's more work has to be done on that framework and how to put meat on those bones. But in terms of, you've got 2 different schools that are not meeting academic performance that are going to be combined in New Southwest High School. My personal opinion is that that's important for that new energy of the new high school to be brought under the newly elected school board. I think that would be an incredible source of pride for the Little Rock community. It's a new high school with a fresh start, and so that energy, I think, is very important for the school. But that's where it is critically important that the state of Arkansas not abandon the Southwest High School or the other schools that are in Category 1 or Category 2 and say, well, that's all local control now, you're on your own. We still have that constitutional requirement, and not just that, it's a moral requirement. So if the State Board of Education says that Southwest High School will be under local control, we need to continue to give that kind of level of support from the state to make sure that it succeeds and has the best chance of success for the students.
Not to belabor the issue, I just happen to be the nephew of Ernest Green, the first black graduate of Central High School. And at the time when he entered those doors, there were 9 black children and a whole host of white children. And it absorbed not only the magnitude of what was taking place in terms of creating this new shift, but it also meant that you didn't have as many, as the data has proven or demonstrated based on what the state has offered, that when you have more disproportionately poor children and black children in one school, they fail. There's only been, I think that, to my knowledge, there's only one C-rated school in the entire state, where you have a majority of the black students where a school is even passing. How can you create this new mix and we're still following the old pattern?
So what's the alternative solution? I mean,
You asking for my wisdom on this?
I mean, I articulated
Well, it seems
that's
that
a challenge, but
it seems as if there needs to be a dispersion of this poverty, because clearly the information that we have has proven to stand the test of time. That anytime you have more black children and more poor children in one school, it has not worked out that it will pass.
well, I have high expectations for those students and for and high praise for the teachers that devote themselves to it, and I believe they can succeed. And the state wants to be able to make sure that we provide the support that is required for that. Thank you for your comment.
Governor, do you